We got on about 75 stations, which for an independent record is extraordinarily well, because they don't add independent records very often. You know, so it was a real statement that these program directors liked it. And we had little pockets of places in the country that we were pretty popular. Philadelphia was real good for us. Maryland, L.A. was a nice pocket.
How did the thing with when the little Kashmir deal came out? It really most of us went out. I bought my second copy of the record. You know, I already it's fine. I mean, because it gave me an opportunity to have two copies and give one to a friend. So, but anyhow, just to get Kashmir, I heard so much about it. All the way across the country, I'd heard about it. So, how did that come about, or doing that?
We were in the middle of promoting Thud, and I had a band together, which, you know, I'd made Thud as a solo act, and had to put a band together to go tour it. And I heard from a friend of mine about this Atlantic Led Zeppelin tribute record, and he's an N.R.G guy who works at Atlantic. And my first question was, well, who's doing Kashmir? Because as far as I'm concerned, this is like the best Led Zeppelin track. You know, if you're going to do a tribute record, it has to have Kashmir. And he said, nobody's doing Kashmir. No one will touch it. I was like, what do you mean no one will touch it? Well, it's 7 minutes long, and it's, you know, it's a classic, and nobody wants to mess with that. You know, they're afraid that they're, you know, he said he tried to get Stone Temple Pilots to do it. He tried to get like 3 or 4 different bands to do it, and they didn't want to. So I said, well, I'll do it. You know, I love that song. We'll do something else with it. It won't. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to sound like Led Zeppelin. In fact, I thought that was the point of a tribute record, is that it's not supposed to sound like the original necessarily. So we just got together and cut this thing in a day and a half. Corky, the guitarist Corky James, and I arranged this thing, so it was pretty different than the original.
Yeah. And
it came out great. And then I sent it to my friend who worked at A&R, and he took it to the boss. And the boss said, Kevin Gilbert, who's Kevin Gilbert? Why are we going to put this on the Led Zeppelin tribute? You know, sure, it's good, but who the hell is Kevin Gilbert?
Yeah.
So the word came back to me that, quote, you're not famous enough to be on the Led Zeppelin tribute, which broke my heart.
Of course.
So we were doing a on-air radio interview with Mark and Brian, who are the KLOS morning DJs here in L.A. And I brought a DAT along of Kashmir just because I wanted to hear it on the radio. Because when you hear stuff on the radio, it sounds neat. Like, it's all compressed, and and that's how I like to hear stuff. You know, like songs that I have in my car, I've taped off the radio. I like how that sounds. It sounds good to me. It's like all smashed. And so I had them play it on the radio so I could get a tape of what it sounded like over the air. And apparently, as they played it, their switchboard lit up, people requesting it, and everyone thought it was on the Led Zeppelin tribute record immediately. And Kerry Kurloff, who's the program director there, added it. And they started playing it about 15 times a day for about 3 weeks. And it was this sort of hit in L.A. But it wasn't on a record.
Or not just
so people were going out in droves buying the Led Zeppelin tribute record and then returning it because it didn't have Kashmir on it. So we put out an EP and packaged it with Thud in order that people might have that. And also on the EP there was a couple more. There was another alternate version of a couple different songs, acoustic version of one. Just the band had progressed enough that it felt like a good idea to record some.
Well, I think speaking for the people that already had the original, thought it was well worthwhile to go ahead and get the second version just to get Kashmir and all the other kind of interesting alternative versions. You were mentioning that, so at that stage, Thud was kind of like a band, and were you guys actually out playing?
Yeah, we played a lot around here, and then we did small, like, spotty gigs in the other parts of the country. And then the band started out as a 4-piece, and then we became a 3-piece for a while because of cost. Because it costs a lot of money to carry guys and equipment across the country and stuff. So, and then by the time we did an actual national tour, we opened for Jonathan Brooke and The Story on their tour, and we were down to just me and Nick. And Nick would play bass with his hands and drums with his feet, and I would play acoustic guitar and sing, and he'd sing, and we were like this 2-man Venice Beach Boardwalk band. But people liked it a lot. So.
Oh, good. Always interested to know what folks like you, what other music affects you. So, as a writer, who do you like?
Oh boy, there's there's been eras, when I was listening to different things. And I've always been really eclectic about what it is that I'm listening to. As a young kid, I loved Burt Bacharach. Not the Dionne Warwick hits that everybody knows, but his orchestral music. It was like his sort of adult contemporary arrangements of his hits and stuff. Because he'd do these really weird things with sound, where he'd layer, a harp and a koto and a harmonica, and that would be playing the melody line and stuff. And I used to just be fascinated by that. As a teenager, I was heavily into progressive rock. Like Gentle Giant, early Genesis, when Gabriel was still singing with him. PFM, which is this Italian band of monster musicians
heard of them.
that I love. I still love PFM. I can admit it. I still listen to progressive rock occasionally. And then Jane Seabury, I used to love her earlier records. Kate Bush.
Right.
There was this whole explosion of music in 1981, where all these amazing XTC's English Settlement came out, Peter Gabriel 3, Kate Bush's Dreaming. All these records came out that were just full of sound, and it was different sounds, like people had never made records that sounded like this. And I got swept up in that, and I think Giraffe, my project, was influenced directly by those records. So and now lately I've been listening to a lot of trip-hop trance music, which I think is pretty fascinating. The stuff that comes out of England. And most of it's done with keyboards and samplers and stuff, but the textures are pretty amazing. And that's on the music side. And then as a lyricist and a writer, I read books, and there's been a few lyricists I love. I thought Paul Simon was great. Sure. Joni Mitchell. The regulars. All the regular, these are good lyricists.
As an artist, are there particular musicians that, you've worked with some great players, obviously, in Toy Matinee and on Thud. Are there people that you just, I'd love to have Peter Gabriel sing on a record, or somebody that you're dying to work with that you haven't worked with?
I'll tell you who I love. There's this band called 11. I think they're husband and wife. Alan Johannes, I think is his name. Alan, however you say that. I have a couple of their records that I think is amazing, and I'd love to work with him. I think Tori Amos is really interesting. Yeah. But get in line, right? Sure. Get in line for Tori Amos to play on your record. I still have a few heroes out there. Of course, I'd love to just meet Peter Gabriel. Interesting guy to talk to.
I saw a real interesting live video of, I don't know, on the Disney Channel or something, a live show of his that was just fascinating, visually much more so than I ever thought. Yeah. I've always liked this music, but...
Yeah, he's a great theatricalist. Yeah. If that's a word.
If it's not...
We've just coined it.
It certainly should be.
Yeah.
It's always an interesting thing I like to ask people. So if there are folks out there hearing this or seeing this that for the first time but don't know you or anything about you, and we were to recommend to them the great Kevin Gilbert tracks, what are you most proud of that you've done? A couple tunes.
That's such a hard question, because all of them are like children. I always feel like this every time I write a song. It's like, it's your child, and you put it out there, and it's like, how do you say, I love this child more than this child? Yeah. There's a song called "Song for a Dead Friend" on Thud, which
great tune.
I don't think it's representative of my work in any way as a writer, but I think that's sometimes the songs just work without a lot of effort and without a lot of pushing, because it's just an emotion that comes out and you get it on tape and it's there. That's one of those songs. I think T for One worked like that too.